Very warm good evening and a warm welcome to Rushcliffe Borough Council's Licensing Committee evening. This is my first meeting as a chair, so I would request everyone to be kind to me as I'm learning the ropes. I would like to remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information, England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, post on social media, or block from this meeting. The use of any such images or sound recordings is not under the Council's control. I would now like to move to the first item on the agenda, apologies for absence. We've had Councillor Regan, who's given his apology, and we have Councillor Butler, who is here subbing him. Have we got any other apologies? Thank you. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Do any of the members here have any interest to declare? None? Item number 3 is minutes of the previous meeting, which was on 17th of October 2023. If you've read the minutes and you're in agreement with it, can I have a show of hands, please, if you agree with the minutes? Okay, everybody was there is in agreement. Thank you. Any disagreements? Any absences? Okay. Thank you. Item number 4 is the Gambling Act 2005 policy, and all members should have received amended copies of the policy, and I'm hoping everyone had the time to read it. I would like to call upon Officer Dave Roberts to run through the salient points of this policy and the amended changes that he's suggesting.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, and thank you for your time this evening. Just so you all know who I am, my name is Dave Roberts. I'm the Senior Licensing and Enforcement Officer for Rushcliffe Borough Council, and I deal with the vast majority of licensing issues on behalf of the borough. This evening, we're going to look at 2 policies. The first one is the Gambling Act 2005's Statement of Licensing Principles for 2025-2028. This is under section 349 of the Gambling Act of 2005, where each licensing authority is required to publish a statement of licensing principles every 3 years, which is unlike the alcohol licensing legislation, which is every 5 years. Now, hopefully you've all had copies of the amended policy. And I need to say that there isn't a huge amount of change to it. And the main reason behind that is the previous government implemented a review of the Gambling Act by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. And that review is still underway. And after consultation with the Gambling Commission, the suggestion to all authorities is for each authority to make the minimum amount of changes required, because when the review is published, there may well be a major review and another policy will need to be implemented. So hopefully we jump straight in, and the first and major change to the policy is on page 7, 2.2, the local area profile. This has been updated from the last policy to fit into with today's population densities and crime stats for the area. As you can see, it's a significant amount, but it only reflects the local priorities in the area. There are several other small changes to the policy. Before I continue, I'll just say, if you do have a question, please through the chair, if you'd like to ask it, please ask it. Yeah, alternative, we'll leave it till the end. So straight away, you've had a copy of the policy and you've read it. And I would say if there is any comments upon the policy so far, please.
Thank you. Do anybody of you have any comments, any observations, and you would like to speak? Councillor Butler.
I'm being slightly pedantic and just a clarification, really. So this isn't coming into effect straight away. Then this is going to be approved at full council in December. So that's why there's reference to this December, last year's meeting and then this year's. Just really for clarification. But yeah.
So the the existing policy expires, I think, on the 31st of January 2025. So we need to get this one approved by endorsed here, and then goes to full council, I think, on the 5th of December, ready for, and then it becomes adopted in January.
So the procedure for it, Councillor, is that the policy has to be published on the 3rd of January. The council then must wait 28 days before the policy becomes into force. So on the 3rd of January, it will be published, and that will be published on our website and at local libraries for any member of the public to view. And there will also be an item in a local newspaper advertising the fact that it will be published. And then on the 31st, it will be fully adopted. Thank you. And as I alluded to earlier, there are very, very minimal changes. The hyperlinks in the current policy have all been updated, so that they do connect to the correct websites, and the information that's in the policy is all current. You will also have had a list of comments as the policy was advertised between the 4th of August and the 29th of September to the public on consultation. And on the rear of the current policy, you will see a list, an Appendix 1, of the bodies and organisations which were consulted. And in that consultation, there were 3 responses, 2 of which, in Appendix 3, 2 of which basically were anti-gambling comments, and one further comment which related to information exchange and the inclusion of diversity, a statement within the policy. And I have to comment on that Rushcliffe Borough Council do have an equality scheme 2021 to 2025, and also an equality and diversity policy in relation to that particular comment. And that, councillors, as they would say, is that in relation to this current policy. So there's very minimal changes apart from topography and geography, and there's very little response in relation to the consultation. The comments in relation to the third comment in relation to the consultation. The first one is it's noted in this section 210, there's no reference to information exchange with third parties such as a constable or a police force, an enforcement officer, another licensing authority, or His Majesty's Commissioners of Customs and Excise, or other authorities have clarified this information exchange may take place with third parties listed at the start of Schedule 6, for example, by using the phrase, the Gambling Act allows the exchange of information with persons or bodies for them to exercise their functions under the Act, which are listed in Schedule 6.1. The comment followed that we suggested Council consider updating the policy to include this particular item. Secondly, promoting equality and diversity across the borough is important. It is noted in this policy that this is welcomed. However, other authorities, and this is authorities within the county, policies go further to provide a more rounded statement, which on the surface strengthens its commitment to these principles. Broxton Borough Council is committed. This is one of the comments. Broxton Borough Council is committed to promoting equal opportunities valuing diversity and tackling social exclusion. The council will aim to provide opportunities that meet the diverse needs of different people and groups of people by ensuring that services and employment opportunities are accessible to all. Everyone will be treated fairly and with respect. Diverse needs will be understood and valued. The council will aim to eradicate all forms of discrimination. The commenter suggested we suggest that the council considers updating this wording in the policy to demonstrate how it is truly ensuring that diversity issues. And as I've said previously, there are two policies in relation to equality and diversity presently on the council's books. And I believe that brings my input to an end on this particular policy, members. So, Chair.
Yeah. Anybody has got any comments on the consultation comments that have been made? What are your views in relation to accepting this or not accepting it? And I've got Councillor Chaplin there.
Thank you. So the comment that Dave just read about section 2.10, I'd like to support the idea of putting that in. I take your point that it is already covered if you know what is in the Act, but I think having it specifically there so that people know that that could take place, that information could be shared with other bodies would be helpful to have. Be interested to know what other people think.
Thank you, Councillor Chaplin. Has anybody else got any views on section 2.10 and whether they feel this should be adopted as part of the policy? No? Councillor Chu.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the only question is, obviously Schedule 6 Part 1 defines who they share with. Am I right in thinking that could be changed at any point in time through a statutory instrument at government? And if so, if we were to prescribe it in this document, we could potentially face a situation 6 months down the line, if it's change of government, this document's then out of date. If so, then I'd be keen to leave it as just 6.1.
There is provision within the Gambling Act for us to change the policy at any time within the 3-year period. And if we need to amend it in any way, we can do with this process, quite simply.
So it might be my way of speaking, but obviously Schedule 6.1 of the Act stipulates who the information should be shared with. Am I right in thinking that can be changed at government level at any point in time? If so, then I'd be inclined not to prescribe in the document. What I don't want to do is create work for the officers to say, we're going to prescribe it now in line with Schedule 6.1. A year down the line, it gets changed, and then we've got to come back here to have a meeting to change it, and the officer's time could be done so. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Why we haven't got it in now.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the reason why it's not in there at the moment. As you've alluded to, if there is a change of government, and there could well be within any time period, but as I alluded to previously, there is an allowance for us to change the policy should we wish to.
Anybody else has got any comments? No? So, do you want to read the other comments for 5.12 and 5.13 before we ask the members to endorse the policy?
Yeah, sure. Comment at 5.13, building on the above, further protection for children and vulnerable persons for gambling. Section 13 could be expanded to include further examples of safeguarding, for example, CCTV, clear notice and signage. Clear practices that outline the steps to be taken to protect children from harm. Proof of age schemes, provisions of information leaflets, helpline numbers of organisations such as Game Care, Self-barring schemes, specified restricted opening hours. Any comments?
Thank you for that. We just want to say that the current list, which is in the policy, is just a few examples, and it's not meant to be an exhaustive list. And if we start adding more things, I just believe that this will limit measures. However, if the committee feels further examples need to be added, we can add them here, but superfluously adding more will just increase the policy with little purpose. But again, this is up to the committee, and I invite people for the comments. Okay, no comments. Councillor Manander.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, not to add to this, but just an observation that we've got this, and I know it's separate legislation anyway. But we've all got mobile devices. You know, anybody who's got a kid with a mobile device, you know that there's adverts that sit in the middle of games that will promote gambling that we won't even see, that you folks won't even see. It does feel that sometimes we're kind of behind the curve with a lot of this. We're doing this here. I know there's national legislation, but you can tap on the adverts and it bypasses the App Store on Apple, it bypasses Google Play, goes straight to the websites, downloads the game straight away onto their phones and devices. It does sometimes feel that we're, pretty much behind the curve with some of this.
Thank you. The issues that you've raised is in relation to online concerns, and I agree with those. However, within the remit of this policy, it's all the physical concerns as such in the borough that we are discussing. So only the role over here is to only approve or endorse those, whilst I'm not negating what you're saying about online issues.
For me, Chair.
Yeah, please.
Just so that you're aware, councillors, annually, myself and my fellow licensing officer, Wojciech, we do inspections of all gambling premises within the borough. Currently, there are 3 betting shops and 2 track betting sections, and that's it. And every single one of those betting premises are compliant. They have CCTV. A lot of them now have facial recognition CCTV, so that if one person is barred in one particular betting shop, then that person will automatically show up on the CCTV of another betting shop. Gambling care and gambling concern posters are on display throughout all the premises. And there is information available at all these premises in relation to problem gambling. Anyone under the age of 18 isn't allowed into a betting shop, and when we do the inspections, we ask each and every member of staff what the situation is if this was to occur, and every single member of staff gives us the correct answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments before we go on to endorse this policy? Councillor Williams.
Just going on that, where you're saying about you go and ask staff at the betting shops and that about what would happen if a child comes in, like with buying alcohol and buying knives and stuff like that, you can kind of have like an undercover operation where a child will go in. Does that kind of thing happen in the betting shops as well?
I can answer that, and it does. It's normally done by the Commission in partnership with Trading Standards. Trading Standards do test purchases at all types of locations across our borough and across the whole of the county. And betting shops do get targeted for test purchases.
So if you're all happy with this, can I have a show of hands, please, if you're happy to endorse this policy? Thank you very much. Item number 5 is the street trading policy from 2025 to 2030. And again, I would like to call Dave Roberts to speak about the salient points of this policy and any amendments.
Thank you, Chair. This policy is slightly different in as much as there is no legal requirement for it to be reviewed. But as we have a policy which was adopted in 2020, then to have it reviewed is common sense. So there's no legislative requirement for it to be reviewed, but to have it reviewed every 5 years is obviously of benefit. There are some changes, and you should have a list of those changes available to you. And I will say that most of these changes are small. Apart from conditions in relation to, apart from changes in relation to conditions which are attached to each and every license, so street trading consent, which is issued. And the main conditions were that we modified for this particular policy is the requirement of all ice cream traders, and we do have 3 that are currently licensed, to have a current disclosure and barring service certificate. The reason behind this is their access to vulnerable people, mainly young children. And so each and every ice cream vendor or operator or his member of staff who operates the ice cream van must have a DBS certificate. The next main changes in relation to this particular policy in relation into the football ground, Nottingham Forest football ground, the city ground. We have a situation that we've had for a number of years prior to 2020, where a number of streets and locations around that ground were what we call consent streets, where nobody could trade on the street selling food or wares without a street trader's consent. Since 2020, that's expanded right the way across the whole of the borough. The issues that we found recently in relation to the football ground was the Take That concert that occurred. If you remembered it, or if you went, I don't know if anybody did. But on 2 days, we had 28,000 people on each day attending. And a number of street traders wanted to trade in that particular area. Now, under the previous or under the current conditions, they're only allowed to trade during football matches. So the conditions have been changed to add that if they wish to trade outside of those particular times during a designated football match, then they must apply separately for a separate street trading consent. And that is the 2 real major changes to that particular policy. It covers the whole of the borough. It allows for street trading to take place in certain locations. The ones around the football ground are extremely restricted. We currently have 12. We have 21 street traders in total. The rest are spaced out around the borough, either in the odd lay-by on the A46 or the A453, or the B606, or various mobile traders doing coffee and burgers, etc. All of the traders within the borough that have consents have to have a minimum of a 3 rating on food hygiene. If they haven't got 3 or more, they don't get a consent. Or if whilst they are trading and they're inspected by the environmental health officers, they're found to be below 3, then they're given 7 days in which to put that right, or else their consent is revoked. And it's revoked purely and simply on public health reasons. If there are any comments or questions, please direct them to the chair. Thank you.
Councillor Sims, Councillor Chewins, and then Councillor Williams.
My question is, how much does it cost to apply for an extra street vendor's licence? I don't understand why we're putting more burdens on business to go through the bureaucracy of reapplying if they've already got a licence during football games. Just because the football ground's being used again does that cost more? How long does that take? That's my question, really.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. In answer to that, no, they wouldn't get another consent. They'd use their same consent. We would just modify it to allow them to use that consent for that particular event. If it was to take that concert, we would say we'd give them written consent to operate on the specific times on those two or three or how many days. So they wouldn't get a new consent. They would operate under their current one.
Does it cost?
No, it doesn't cost.
How long does it take to get the extra consent?
It depends on how quickly you get the email to me. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Chewits?
Thank you, Chair. Going back to condition 11 on page 8 of the document, obviously we've varied it to being ice cream traders for the DBS check. I note from the previous policy it was all traders. What's the reason for watering it down to only be those of ice cream traders? And I'm not saying we should be overzealous and be requiring from everybody, because I think it was probably a bit too broad. But my concern is sweet vendors. There's other vendors out there that will be predominantly children going towards it, and I presume that's what's aimed at the ice cream. So why are we restricted to that? And can we look at some alternative wording that would encompass other confectionaries that would be more attractive to children?
You did mention the phrase overzealous, and I think originally parts of the policy were overzealous, and it did place an additional burden upon the street traders to ensure that they had an up-to-date DBS every year. And my way of thinking is there is a declaration within the application which asks the traders if they have any unspent convictions under the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, and if they say no, they don't have any, that is the declaration. If they say yes, they do have any, then we would ask them what they were. My idea behind the DBS for ice cream vendors is purely and simply because they have unmonitored access to vulnerable people, as in children, and especially children of special educational needs. And my way of thinking is this is the area that needs to be focused on more. I've already said that if somebody declares that they've got a previous conviction, then we'll interview that particular person to find out. And at the end of the day, if somebody has a conviction for shoplifting when he was 15 and he's now 55, I think we could well and truly say that that conviction is spent.
Thank you. I fully accept the reasons why it is for ice cream vendors, but I just think it should be more broader. I would like to see that we have some terminology in there that says that it's for ice cream vendors or confectionate traders that target children, etc. Because the argument will be that an ice cream van could have unsupervised access to children or those with vulnerabilities. I'm not seeing the data on that, but also the same argument we presented for a sweet stall that's in there. And what I want to do is put a position where we are precluding that DBS check for those circumstances.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there, but the situation is with, like you say, like with sweet stalls, like we have in the market on a Saturday on the croquet lawns. They're not street traders; they're market traders. We don't regulate them. The market is run by an individual, or there are several markets actually that are run by individuals. They operate within 6.5 miles of the city centre, so they have to have permission from Nottingham City to operate, and they operate under the market's charter. We don't regulate those, but if there was a mobile street trader that was offering confectionaries, then I would say that common sense would dictate that I would ask them for a DBS certificate, and it would be, and if need be, we would put it into the policy.
So if that was to be allowed, we need it in the policy now to allow you to do that. Otherwise, we have to bring it back, and that's the point. I appreciate we've potentially got no street traders at the moment that require this, but it's about future proofing.
Yeah.
I take your point, and I think if the committee were to approve that and endorse that, then I think we'd be perfectly happy to add that.
Is Councillor Solomon?
Thank you. Can I just ask if we're targeting, our concern is about children here, so we're looking at widening it to including sweets. What about widening it then to toys?
Yeah,
What? Yeah.
I agree. So for traders to target sole custom of children, and then that gives the licensing officers then the decision making process. Primary, yeah.
Primary, not sole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
primary. And then that gives you the option then.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
So to change, I'm proposing point 11 on page 8 for the ice cream traders as basic criminal background check. So change it to traders with the primary objective of selling to children required a criminal background check. So then it opens it up and it gives you that discretion to move forward about whether it's required or not.
Yeah, I could do that quite easily. Sir.
Is everybody okay with the proposed amendment? Yeah, I think it's a good amendment and it covers everything. All the traders are targeting children.
That's okay. I've got no objection. I think it's a great amendment. I just want to ask, when we're asking for criminal convictions, where is the bar? Where is the bar to say, no, you can't do this? Because I'm thinking that people go to prison and they come out of prison, and they need to work and they need to be rehabilitated. And certainly with the key makers that's just got a position at Labour, he employs Timson's. That's it. He employs criminals, ex-criminals, or people. You know, so where is that line drawn? Is it sexual offences? Is it violent offences? I just would like to know.
Okay, so I'll move you across then to the taxi and hackney carriage policy, in which we have a fit and proper test. And I'll say, I will quite openly admit and say that a number of our hackney carriage drivers and private hire drivers have a number of convictions. Some of them you would think, why have they got a job as a taxi driver? Because looking at the history of the individual, we can see what those convictions are. We can see how long ago they were. And if somebody, as I alluded to previously, had a conviction when he was 15 or when he was 20, and he's now 40, 50, 60 years of age, do we hold that against the person? And in answer to that, I say no. However, there is a requirement for a person to be fit and proper. That isn't in this policy. It could be, but it isn't in this policy. And the way that we would do that would be, if somebody has got a conviction, then we interview them. We interview them.
My problem is the governance procedures behind that. If it's left to your opinion, your common sense is you keep on. I don't believe in common sense. I believe in common knowledge, but not common sense, because everybody's got different perceptions and views of any differing situation. Certainly, if somebody's just come out of prison and wants to get a job, and for one, we've all got unconscious bias that we don't know that we've got. You interview this person and you say, no, this person hasn't got a living to make, because in your opinion, I just think that there should be some sort of framework that people can appeal against to more senior officers. I think we ought to have a check and balance in place as a council for that, because it opens the door to discrimination, even if we're not meaning to discriminate.
I understand completely what you say. There is a process that we go through where we would refuse somebody a licence, and that just isn't Wojciech's decision. That isn't my decision. That is the lead officer's decision. And if it's not the lead officer's decision, then it's the service manager's decision. And if the service manager can't make that decision, then it goes to David Banks.
But what I'm saying is, if we had a framework in place,
Yeah.
say these are the sort of offences that we are absolute red lines, no, like sexual offences and things like that. When you're trading with children or taxi driving, these are the offences. But even if it wasn't when they were 15, even if it was 5 months before, people still need to work, and they look for these sorts of jobs. So I really genuinely.
Yeah, I understand that. There is an appeals process within the policy, which would come to yourselves, obviously.
It's very informal.
Yeah.
I'm really uncomfortable. I'm working governance.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable that we've got this finger in the wind approach to potential discrimination.
I suppose what Councillor Sims is saying is it possible to have a document, a framework, a formal framework, which is circulated to all the members, so we all know the framework, what is the process, how it works, and exclude certain things like sexual and violent offences? That's definitely a no-go. Is it possible to have that? Yeah. Yeah.
That would be, I think.
Martin Hick here, Principal Officer. The DBS system's been required for all the street trading for the last 5 years, and it's not been a particular issue that's been raised. What we're trying to do is just narrow it down and focus it. And I don't believe it'll be a problem moving forward. But if on the odd chance that one was to come up, I think what I would say is it would come to me to look at, and there would be an appeals process in place where it would quite likely come to a committee for members to kind of decide whether that person was eligible, fit, likely to cause harm or not.
I understand that, but members should have some sort of framework. Like I have sentencing guidelines, when you're in court, members should have a framework on which they're based upon, because we're all lay people. We're not professional people in that sort of area, and there should be some sort of framework that we apply that to. And I'm just conscious with such an outstanding borough, this is an obvious error in it. And yes, it might be on occasion, and often I say in my work, in the unlikely event, but the unlikely events do happen. So it would be the checks and balances in place need to be there. So in that unlikely event, we can say we made the right decision, and you've made the right decision, and we can back you as back the officers. The councillors can say, no, we back the officers on this. It's just no difference planning, really.
I understand it. I just think we've not done that in the past because it's quite an overly bureaucratic for the number of cases that we've got, and we feel it can be dealt with by reasonable judgment.
That's your opinion.
Right. Can I come to Councillor Billen now?
Yeah. Can I pick up just from the end of that? I'm Vice Chair of Governors at a primary school, and protection is paramount. To me, I actually agree with what Councillor Sims is saying. We need to take the person out of the process, because heaven forbid you may leave office. Somebody else will come in with a different view. Is to make it a framework that there's no there's discretion, but it's not relying just on your knowledge and your history and information and yours. So if somebody else comes in, they also have the same thing to pick up on. Yeah, I don't want to give people too much work, but I think that taking the personality out of the process is quite important for something like, particularly around safeguarding. My original question actually was for there. Licensed, going back quite a bit, licensed ice cream vans. What's the difference between one of those and one that comes around our estate in East League? Because you said we've only got 3 that are licensed, and if those 3 are the only ones that are applying their trade in the borough, they're very busy.
Chances are it's not licensed. So, and we do have this across the borough where we do get ice cream vendors coming in who are not licensed by this particular borough, probably not licensed by any borough. And unless we know who they are, then it's fairly difficult for us to license. So, I would say to you, if you see an ice cream vendor, take the vehicle registration. If there's any phone numbers on it, take the phone number, pass it through to us, and we make contact. We've done that before.
Got quite a few members who need to speak, but got Councillor Phillips in.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about the food hygiene level 3. What checks do we actually do if it's someone trading in the street? Do we go back to their premises where it's processed, how it's transported, how it's stored? I mean, what is the process before we issue that level?
Yep, I'll come on to that. So yeah, all food businesses have to be registered with the local authority in which they operate, and they're visited on a risk-based process, and that'll be at base as well as their mobile vendor vehicle or whatever. And the registration, or sorry, the food hygiene rating scheme is very highly monitored. There's an entire infrastructure behind it. It's a national infrastructure, as you'll all be well aware. You'll see the stickers on most food premises, not all of them, regrettably, but on most of them. And it's a rating of 0 to 5, and we're looking for broadly compliance, and anything 3 or above is a broadly compliant food business. So you can be pretty safe and sound that's a broadly compliant food, but anything less than that, there are some issues that they need to address.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Phillips? Yeah. Could I come to Councillor Grover, please?
Sorry, I'm going to return to Councillor Sims' point, I'm afraid. I think it's quite straightforward, really. We just want you to put your thinking onto paper. So the process that you go through as you made the point, Chair, really, the process that you go through to make those decisions, to make those recommendations based on the results of a DBS, just put it into paper and have it as a framework that's an appendix to this policy. I think it shouldn't be too onerous, and then we can presumably review it and approve it. I don't think it's too much to ask. I mean, because I think there is an appeal process. Absolutely, there's appeal, but it still seems to me that all those processes, as Councillor Sim says, are still not done by a framework. It's still by the sort of judgment of the officer, judgment of another officer, judgment by a group of councillors. But then, what's the framework by which we're making that judgment on? So you could, if you had in your own mind the sort of offences that would make you think to not give that license, put that down. If there's something that make you go, I'm not so sure, but there's certain circumstances, then that could be something that would be more likely to get an appeal. So I just wanted to check that we can put that matter to bed and that members are agreed that that's what we'd like. I don't know. So I'll put that as a motion, if you like. Sorry, David. It's yours, really. It's yours, really. But that we'd like to see a framework of the process by which that's undertaken.
I think that's doable. I think we've got to be mindful of the timescales around the fact that this policy has to be in place in January. It'll have to go to full council in December for final approval. But we could obviously take that to full council with a framework in a revised appendix along the lines that you talk about. And for me, it'd be around the relevancy of the conviction to what's being done. Because there'd be lots of convictions which would not be relevant and would be taken into account. So I think we can do it.
Can I know Councillor Sims.
Very quick.
Okay.
It's no problem taking the policy to council, so long as we then do an appendix and take our time over the appendix and leave the policy open to appendices. and then the appendix is agreed by committee, it's taken to the next council, it's bolted onto the policy.
Definitely do that.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you. I'm going to build on the point that's been raised about the framework because it's about protection, protecting everybody, protecting people who use the services, but also protecting you as officers that you have made the right decision and judgment based on someone's circumstances. Like David, I'm a magistrate and we work on sentencing guidelines. They make sure you can't go wrong. So I think in terms of expediency for getting something done, it's about targeting what is the most of concern within this. So I'll pick up on the Hackney carriages. Someone who's on the sexual offences register and they're on there for life should never, ever get into a position where they can drive home young, vulnerable girls that are a bit drunk on a night out, and that should never happen. And I'm sure that you're so sensible you would never let that happen. But people can make a mistake, or you leave, someone else comes in and takes your role, may not be experienced, and it's better for them to have a framework to fall back on as well. So I think if there's one element that needs to be brought forward and put in place, it's that particular area for protecting vulnerable people in that situation. So I'm all for a framework. Doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be exhaustive. Pick out the bits that are really essential, and that can be done quite quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. I think the overwhelming sentiment in this room is that we go for a framework which is objective, transparent, very clear in its processes, and then we can go to the full council with the appendix as suggested.
This policy, but with a view to come back to full council with an amendment.
Okay, so what we're looking today is to endorse the policy today, but with a view to come back to the full council with an amendment and then appendix. Councillor Chewings.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just we need to still approve the amendment I put forward. We've not voted on that yet because Councillor Sims stepped in and we got into a very detailed discussion. I think very worthwhile. Before we go into that, I just want to fully endorse what Councillor Sims said about having that structure in place. Same time, let's not reinvent the wheel. We've got the fit and proper test we use for taxi licensing. Why don't we just use that, which has been perfectly tested through courts, and then give a few examples of these are the cases you definitely would not be getting a permit, and these are cases where you likely would do. And I think give that example. If 40 years of age now, at 15, you stole from a shop, you're likely to be given a permit. Just give a couple of examples so people can see what they're coming into, and we use a fit and proper test. Let's not reinvent the wheel. And then just need to make that amendment to point 8 on page 8. It's point 11 on page 8, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Chewings. Got Councillor Williams.
Yeah. So you're talking about sort of different ages of people when they've convicted something, and it's to your judgment. After 10 years, your conviction doesn't stand anyway. So that is part of the framework that everyone can go by, and it takes out that subjective judgment, which is better for everyone.
Williams.
My question I'm going to ask is in relation to something that Councillor Sims said, but not on the framework, because I think everybody else has said everything, and totally agree with what has been said around that. It was about the kind of take that example, and where you said about that anybody who's trading around the city ground would then have to reapply for a license for like the one-off event and stuff like that. With the kind of the ever increasing events and stuff like that happening at Trent Bridge, where does that as an event then fit in? Are they then going to have to be like a Take That concert? And because there's more and more events, kind of what happens around there? Because looking at the maps that are in the appendices, it's all very focused around the city ground on kind of allowed streets, whereas the Trent Bridge is restricted.
First off, we do not allow street trading to take place when cricket matches are on. It's only for the football currently. And as I alluded to earlier, is they don't require a new licence. All they require is permission to trade on a special event. I understand what you're saying about the cricket ground, but the policy only applies to the football ground, not to the cricket ground. So if they wanted to trade during an England-Australia test match, and they currently have a street trader's consent, they would just need permission from us to trade on that particular day.
Because the reason I ask is when I've been to cricket matches, I've seen people that are kind of outside co-op selling wares and stuff like that. So it's kind of.
I know the ones you're talking about, and they are what is known as peddlers. They all have peddlers certificates, which allow them to sell their goods in the street without a street trading consent, so long as they move from place to place, And if you notice when you do see them, they normally move every 20 minutes, and they do all carry peddler certificates.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Thanks, Chair. I just want clarification, please. You know, on about the ice cream van vendors. Is the company, if it's based in the borough, do they have to apply a licence, or does anybody coming from, say, Broxton, coming into Rushcliffe, selling around our estate?
The three that we have currently licensed are all come from outside the borough. One from Arnold, one from Grantham, and one from an address within the city. They can't trade within the borough without a street trading consent issued by the borough. If they've got one issued elsewhere, it doesn't count. It's a bit like scrap metal collectors. They have to have a licence to operate within the borough. If they've got one from somewhere else, it's not applicable to this area.
I just wondered if it's the same like taxiing, where you can get it in Wolverhampton, do it around there.
No, it doesn't work like that, fortunately.
Just thought to check.
Have we got any more questions, any more comments? So, Councillor Billen.
Just one comment to say thank you everybody for your presentation.
Yeah. Councillor Shewings, have you got any other points? Because we're talking about the amendment to the policy which Councillor Sims has suggested. I know you started with the discussion, and then Councillor Sims.
So I move an amendment to point 11 on page 8, replace for ice cream traders to traders with the primary focus of selling to children. So I move that amendment if I have a seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Councillor Sims with his amendment to have a framework. So what we document, so what we're saying is we are endorsing the policy today with the view to have an appendices to the main policy at the full council meeting on the 5th of December. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not saying in future I will put it.
No, I think what you're saying, Councillor Sims, is that we can endorse the policy as it stands for approval today to enable that to go to full council in December, but then at a point to give us time to pull together the framework and get it right in light of what you've said, come back then to full council in the new year perhaps with that amendment to slot back into the policy. Yeah.
It's a framework that we create.
Thank you, Councillor Sims. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Fletcher. Thank you. So I think we have had a good Councillor Greco.
Second, just on Councillor Chewings' point, and I know he was making a specific reference. The reference to the ice cream vendor appears in about 9 different places in the document. So it's probably just worth highlighting that it probably needs to be amended in all of those places. Yeah, I just thought that was read, but.
So if everybody's happy with the debate and the discussion we've had, I would like to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you everybody for your. So the report is endorsed today. Sorry. Okay, so thank you. So could we please have a vote on both the amendments put forward by Councillor Chewings, Councillor Sims? Are we all in favour of the amendments and with the policy going to the full council on 5th of December? The vote's carried through. So I'd like to draw the meeting to a close and thank you everyone for attending today.